Greetings, fellow hunters. Well, like a Supernatural Season 5 now continues on with Dark Side of the Moon. In their motel room, Sam and Dean awaken from themselves at the gunner points at two ski-masked men. Dean recognizes them as hunters Rory and Walt, both of whom are for Sam's blood for starting the apocalypse. Before Sam can explain himself, Walt shoots him. Rory says him to shoot Dean, believing that it was right to kill Sam, but Dean is innocent. Walt points out that he has made them and they have just killed his brother. Therefore, they do not want Dean Winchester alive to hunt them down. DeVries tells them to shoot him, but warns him, when I come back, I'm gonna be pissed. Roy hesitates, so Walt shoots him dead. Dean awakens again, this time alone in the Impala, confused and disoriented. He gets out young Sammy runs up, bearing a box full of fireworks. He says toward the field and tells him to come on. Dean thinks he's having a weird dream and follows along. When Sam tells him to fire them up, Dean finds a long-lost light in his pocket and sets them off. With the first flourish, Dean remembers it's 4th of July, 1996. Sam certainly gives Dean a hug, thanking him for the fireworks in spite of what their dad would allow. The pleasant experience suddenly ends when Dean has a flashback of him and Sam being shot. When he returns to his car, Cass manages to contact him over the radio. At first he is annoyed that Cass is poking around in his dreams, but Cass informs him that he and his brothers were killed, offhandedly offering his condolences, and are now in heaven. He tells him to follow the Axis Mundi to locate Sam. Sam is having dinner with the family of his schoolmate Stephanie, who was letting her fingers do the walking off Sam's lap under the table. When Dean appears, Sam thinks he's crushing his dream. Dean informs him that they are in fact dead, and Sam is hard to believe that they have ended up in heaven considering some of the things they've done, speaking for himself particularly. They come to the conclusion that heaven is the perpetual reliving of pleasant experiences and memories from life. Dean starts to give Sam a hard time for regarding playing footsie with Braceface as a banner moment, but Sam points out that he was 11 years old and that was his first real Thanksgiving. Dean contends they have Thanksgiving every year, but Sam says the hand was a bucket of extra crispy and their dad passed out on the couch. A sudden rumbling accompanied by a searchlight takes over the spice of prize and they hide. Once it is gone, Dean quickly explains how Castiel contacted him before he manages to find him again, this time over a television set. Castiel tells him the rumbling light is Zechariah and to avoid him at all costs. He does this in the back to Earth because they can't say yes to Michael and Lucifer if they are dead. Although Sam and Dean do not see that as a bad thing, Castiel, who still can't return to heaven, explains that since they are behind the wall, they have the perfect opportunity to find out where God can be found. He tells him about the angel Joshua and how rumors say that God often contacts and speaks with him. He sends the boys on a mission to find Joshua in the garden and learn whatever they can about God's whereabouts. Castiel's instructions are for them to follow the Axis Mundi, which for them specifically manifests as a 2-lane asphalt. When they walk out of the house, they find there's only forest where the road was before. They go back inside and Dean inspects a closet for a lead, and he recognizes a toy car and racetrack from his childhood. When he places the car on the track, they find themselves in the child's bedroom. After Dean realizes it is his own room at home in Lawrence, their mother peeks and asks Dean if he is hungry. They are both too stunned to speak. As Sam watches offside, Mary serves Dean lunch, taking care to cut the crust off his PB&J for him. Sam calls out to her, but she doesn't hear him. Dean says it must be because it's not his memory. Sam tries to get back on the road, but Dean asks that he let him have just a minute. Mary answers the phone call from John and argues with him. Dean remembers it is to be the time his dad moved out for a few days because his parents were fighting. Sam recalls John always saying he and Mary had the perfect marriage. Dean says it wasn't perfect until after she died. When Mary hangs up distraught, Dean goes to comfort her, telling her that John still loves her and so does he, and that he will never leave her. She also tells him he is her little angel and goes and turns to give him some pie. He then rejoins Sam, and comments sadly that he never realized how long Dean has been clearing up their dad's messes. Dean tries to brush off his observation and returns to the task at hand. As he searches for ways back to the road, Sam recognizes a postcard from Route 66 in a drawer and finds themselves standing in a trailer. A golden retriever runs in and greets Sam. He starts to see him and tells Dean that Bones was his dog. Dean's confused until he realizes they are Flagstaff, and then can't believe it is one of Sam's good memories. Sam's good memories. Sam explains that he was on his own for 2 weeks, living off Funyuns and Mr. Pibb. Dean remembers it was when Sam ran away on his watch that he looked everywhere for him and thought he was dead. He shudders when recalling what happened when John returned. Sam recognizes Dean's distress and apologetically says they'd never thought of it that way. Dean wants to forget it and keep moving. They step out into the night and onto the road. When they look back, the trailer's gone and they're outside a house that Dean doesn't at first recognize, but Sam obviously doesn't urge that they press forward. Despite his effort, Dean realizes they are in Sam's memory of the night he ditched Dean and John for Stanford. He comes undone and tells Sam that night was one of the worst nights of his life. Sam tries to explain that he had reason he held it as a good memory because because he finally got out from under their father's tyrannical heel. Their dad was the only one he got away from, Dean mutters. Sam says he's sorry, but he can't control how his memories play out. Dean tries to process the fact that all Sam's treasured memories are centered around being away from his family. Sam uses the fact that their mom never cut the crust off of his PB&J as an example of why he just doesn't think of family the same way Dean does. Dean discovers that he is his family. He thought they were a team and it was supposed to be the two of them against the world. Sam says of course it is, but Dean seems to be no longer sure. The argument is cut short when the searchlight suddenly beams down directly on them. They can run for the woods near the house as Zechariah strolls leisurely after them. As they cover behind a log, Zechariah turns night to day and tells them they can't run or hide from angels in heaven. Besides, he just wants to send them back to Earth, that's all. That is, he adds, after he inflicts some quality torture that will leave them begging to say yes. Just as seems Zechariah has them, a man in a luchador mask appears and tells them to follow him. He runs to a small shed in the woods, scrawls some Nokia symbols on the door, and leads him inside. The inside shed is revealed to be the roadhouse, complete with its familiar smell. The heaven of none other than Ash. Over some beers, Ash explains heaven to Sam and Dean. Firstly, he says they have to stop thinking of heaven as one place, because it's actually more like 100 billion places, so they just won't be able to find them for a while. They're currently in Ashland, but he rescued them from Winchester Land, and those are the only two among the billions of everybody else's lands all crammed together. Like it's sent to Disneyland without all the anti-Semitism, and at the center of it all is a magic kingdom, the garden. Everyone gets their own slice of paradise, except for special cases who could share. When Dean asks what special means, Ash replies, oh, like soulmates. He looks at Sam and Dean ponderously for a moment, just long enough for them to recall their last arguments they made eye contact with each other. And then goes on to explain that normally each person is bound to their respective heaven, but being a master genius, he's wanting to visit other heavens, including those of the author of the Kama Sutra. That 7? Sweaty, confusing. Albert Einstein, he mixes the mean white Russian, Johnny Cash, and Andre the Giant. When Sam asks how he found them, he reveals his very own Holy Roland police scanner, a trucked out laptop repurposed to receive Angel radio. So he sees between fluent and Enochian. He heard the Winchesters had arrived and of course had to come and find them, again. The boys are surprised to learn they've been there before, so Ash concludes the angels must have Windexed their brains each time they were revived. He also confirms that the two of them have died more than anyone else he knows. This leads them to ask if he's found Ellen or Joe. Those are just leaves him shaken, but the boys assure them that they went out fighting. After telling them he's been on the lookout for their parents but hasn't found them yet, he says he identified someone else who wants to see them, Pamela Barnes. Dean and Pamela migrate to a table for two while Sam sits at the bar with Ash, observing as he devises a direct route to the garden. When Pam gives Dean a half-powdered smack upside the head for getting her killed, Dean says he probably deserves worse and mentions that they got Ash killed too, and that makes her feel any better. Ash hears him and chimes in that he's cool with it. Pamela says she's cool as well. She did go a better place, just like he told her she would as she was dying. Dean confesses he was lying, but she maintains he was right for her. He was right. For her, it's like one long amazing show of the Meadowlands. She asks him to seriously consider if saying yes to Michael would be as bad as it seems, because, well, yes, lots of people die in the crossfire, the majority of them would come to heaven. Dean says he'd have a problem spending eternity in a private Memorex universe, knowing the angels are running the real show. To him, that's silly and seems more like being caught in the Matrix than achieving nirvana. Sam points out that it's better than ending up in the basement. Another awesome thing not something Ash has discovered in heaven is a practical application for string theory, which is used to come up with a shortcut to the garden. It draws an Enochian formula in the Exeter that will work as an all access pass to the Magic Kingdom for the Winchesters, but warns them Zechariah will have everyone to the garden under close watch. After Mel gives Sam a hug and lays a pre-planned farewell kiss on Dean, they prepare to leave. Ash says he has a feeling he'll be seeing them again soon. Dean tells him to keep a six-pack on ice for them. As they walk through the doorway, they're confused to find they are back in their childhood home at nighttime. Mary appears and asks Dean if he was awakened by a nightmare. Dean apologizes and tells her he loves her, but that she's not real and really has to go now. When he turns to leave her, her demeanor turns dark and she starts to taunt him, saying he was a burden that she never loved. When he turns to look back at her, eyes turn yellow and the atmosphere of the room soon becomes harsh. She goes on to describe disturbing details about her death, the silver lining of which she was finally away from him. She doesn't ask himself why everyone leaves him, his mom, his dad, and even Sam. While she laughs at his distress, Zechariah appears. The boys realize the whole episode was his doing, then the strike are seized from behind by his henchmen. In a vulgar display, he kisses Mary's neck and makes lewd sexual innuendos about their time together while he watches the boys writhe. He finally ends the illusion, but tells them he's just getting started on them. He starts punching Dean while his henchmen restrain him, unloading his frustration over the humiliation he's experiencing because he can't close a deal on a couple of pathetic flannel-wearing maggots. He informs them bitterly that whether they say yes or not, it's become personal, and he is a fouler enemy to have than Lucifer, because while Lucifer is strong, he is petty. As Zechariah's planned torture of them is about to begin in full, an angel appears behind them and says he needs to speak with the Winchesters. Zechariah tries to pull rank, but the angel informs him that the orders came from the boss. When Zechariah accuses him of lying, the angel says he can fire him if he wants to, but reminds him that when he eventually comes back home, Zechariah will find himself subject to that whole wrath thing. Zechariah's cohorts disappear. Dean and Sam are transported to the garden with the angel, whom the girl introduced to be Joshua. The garden strikes them as nice-ish as gardens go, but they are not too impressed. Joshua informs that everyone sees what they want to. Some see God's throne room or Eden, for example, but they happen to see it as Cleveland Botanical Gardens, where they visited once on a field trip. They told Joshua that they were told he talks to God and they need to speak with him urgently. Joshua tells them God is actually on Earth at the moment. Exactly where and doing what, Joshua doesn't know. He also tells them it's more accurate to say that God talks to him, but not face to face. They're curious as to why he's the only being that God seems to be communicating with. Joshua believes it's because he can sympathize with him, gardener to gardener, and that he's actually quite lonely. Dean in particular is not sympathetic and voices irritation. But Sam asks if he can get a message to God for them. Joshua actually says a message for them. Back off. Joshua says God knows the apocalypse has begun. He knows what the angels are doing, and he doesn't feel it's his problem. He's finished. When the brothers express their disbelief and disgust with his inaction, Joshua Anchor reminds him that it was God who put them on the plane when Lucifer rose. God who brought back Castiel. God who gave them salvation in heaven despite their crimes, and that it was the most he'd done for anyone in a very long time. He says they can't kill Lucifer and to try to give up trying to find God, because magic gambling or not, he won't be found. The boys can't believe that what they're hearing, and say God could stop all of it. Josh is supposed to could, but he won't. And the answer to why not is as Nova as to the question of why he allows evil into the world in the first place. Joshua knows Dean is gutted by this revelation and sincerely apologizes. Dean is furious and bitterly replies that he's used to deadbeat dad excuses and will muddle through. Josh exposes Dean's fear that he doesn't think he can this time, because he's losing faith in himself and in Sam, and God was his last hope. Sam voices suspicion that Joshua could be misleading them, as they have been victims of angels with agendas before. Joshua is offended and says he's rooting for Team Free Will and wishes he could do more for them, but he just trims the hedges. The boys are at a loss as to what to do now. Joshua says they have to go home. This time won't be like the others, because God wants them to remember it. With that, he sends them back to Earth with a wash of white light. They arrive in their murder scene gasping for air, their memories intact. Castiel has arrived in the motel room and is devastated by God's message. He curses his father, looks up as if he's still looking for a sign from him. Havana pulls Dean's necklace out of his pocket and tosses it to him, declaring the amulet worthless. Ignoring Sam's plea for him to wait, he vanishes. Frustrated but resigned, Sam tells his brother the two of them will find another way to stop the apocalypse. Dean silently walks past him, drops the amulet trash can, and walks out the door. So anyway, let's take a look at some continuity from this episode. Zacharias' continuing descent into madness becomes more apparent in this episode. It's all confirmed that it was God who put Sam and Dean on the plane, detox Sam of demon blood, and resurrected Castiel. It is revealed that God was on Earth, but his activities were unknown. It is later revealed that Chuck Shirley is in fact God. God's refusal to help the brothers or get involved directly foreshadows his disappointment in his creations. Pamela Barnes was last seen in Death Takes a Holiday. During unfinished business, it was confirmed Mary made it to heaven before her resurrection. In absence, it was confirmed that John made it to heaven. And now let's take a look at some trivia from this episode. Both Pamela Barnes and Ash, as well as Mary Winchester as a memory, makes an appearance in this episode in heaven. Ash tells the brothers that heaven is comprised of roughly 100 billion individual heavens. Considering that the number of humans that have lived and died since 50,000 BC is estimated to be 106.5 billion, that puts roughly 5% of the total human population in hell. This means that, in the supernatural universe, which is an deciding factor for afterlife destinations. Or Ash said, but like 100,000 heavens, it's also possible that he was using this number to represent roughly 100,000, but opposed to a large number of heavens, and not exactly 100,000. This episode title is a reference to the Pink Floyd album of the same name. It's revealed that Sam and Dean have died multiple times than they were aware of, and each time they were resurrected, their memories were erased by the angels. This marks the first time in the series that the characters celebrated Independence Day. And now finally, let's take a look at a couple of errors. When Dean wakes up in heaven inside his memory of 4th of July 1996, the Apollo wakes up and has the Ohio license plate CNK 80Q3. That plate was introduced in Season 2's All Hell Breaks Loose Part 1 after Sam and Dean escape from prison. So in 1996 memory, the car should have had the original Kansas license plate KAZ2Y5. Sam and Dean were guided in heaven by Reapers, seeing as they didn't know where they were at first. Even the dead have to give their consent to pass on, except for when their bodies were salted and burned. Interesting. So I think this episode is kind of interesting, and yeah, it's kind of sad that the Samulet, that Dean had to throw away the Samulet, but we will see it again in a later season, so there's that, but yeah. So overall, I give Dark Side of the Moon 4 Impalas out of 5. Anyway, tune in a bit until the next episode, 99 Problems. So, until then, carry on, my wayward sons and daughters.